Hello and welcome to the Social Talks. I'm your host Tarima Farouk with today's story of two disasters. At approximately 2:04 a.m. on June the 14th, the Adriana fishing boat capsized in the Mediterranean with approximately 750 refugees on board. 104 survivors have so far been rescued and 84 have been confirmed deceased. Hundreds more, including women and children who were crammed below deck, were swept down with the boat. The boat had set off from Egypt and had stopped at Libya on June the 9th to take hundreds more refugees. Most on board were from Pakistan. Dozens hailed from Syria, Egypt and Palestine. The boat was caught by a Frontex surveillance plane by the European Border Agency at around 9:47 a.m. on June the 13th. Frontex had notified Greek and Italian authorities of the overcrowded boat that had been sighted in the Greek maritime rescue zone. Two freighters arrived on the same afternoon. The first captain reported that the refugees refused help and wanted to go to Italy. Apparently, they had to be convinced to take water and food according to their reports. The second captain reported similarly. According to the official Coast Guard statement, the boat had continued slowly and steadily before suddenly stopping, capsizing and sinking within a few minutes. However, this was not the stories that the refugees gave. According to survivors, the water on board had already run out on the third day and the engine had been repeatedly failing, so by Tuesday the engine had stopped working altogether and they had not moved. They said that they did not refuse help. 5 people had even died of dehydration on board, and they were desperate for any help from any country. Aid organisation Alarm Phone also reported that they had received distress calls for help in the early afternoon of June the 13th. Furthermore, several of the survivors from the refugee tragedy have testified unanimously that the Coast Guards capsized the fishing boats themselves. Authorities contrastingly reported that the boat capsized itself. Witnesses testified that initially, Coast Guards had thrown a rope to the boat to tow it away. However, as this had failed, the Coast Guard attached another rope to the boat and made a sharp turn to the right, then to the left, which caused people to veer to one end of the boat and so for it to capsize. Survivors also testified that the Coast Guards then cut the rope, and as people jumped into the water and many children and women remained on the boat, they had, for 15 to 20 minutes, merely watched. Only after this did the guards lower small boats into the water, and they only took in those that managed to swim to them. BBC and The Guardian have also evaluated that the location of the ships involved showed that the Adriana had not moved for at least 7 to 11 hours before it capsized. Coast Guards took a photo of the Adriana hours before the accident, which showed its motionlessness too. However, instead, the Commissioner for Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson, who was responsible for migration and flight at the European Union, held the smugglers solely responsible for the disaster. More than 10 days later, at least 500 people are still missing, leaving families around the world without answers. However, this tragedy has still garnered far less attention than any other disaster such as the submerged Titan submarine, which carried 5 people, many of whom were wealthy. Not only has attention been taken largely by the Titanic submarine, but resources and rescuers have also been raised towards the handful of wealthy people and explorers. The contrast in treatment between these people is jarring. Regardless of responsibility for the sinking of the ship, many argue that the reaction to rescue efforts by authorities has been a dark reflection on humanity. With the help of agencies from other nations, the Coast Guard raced towards finding the missing submarine vessel. Meanwhile, after escorting the refugee boat for hours, the Coast Guard vessel at Greece did not seem to be in any rush. Although media attention towards the submarine story could owe to its uncommonality, whereas sinking refugee boats have become commonplace, this calls us to question the desensitization of humanity. Media representation did not have to sacrifice one for the other. People can think about and respect 2 things at once. So what do you think? What is the greater picture? For now, this has been Tahima Farouk with the Social Talks. Thank you for joining us.